You know,
I thought that was a beer.
is that how it is?
Have you all got your turkeys, have you, before the bird flu came in?
Oh, yeah, that's right, avian flu. Yeah, I was going to get a crown this year.
Listen, they'll be going around. They'll be giving the turkeys the COVID vaccine.
Well, they could. Yeah, I was going to say this might be quite a good year to be a turkey around Christmas because there might not be the demand.
But they're saying a lot more people are staying at home this year.
There won't be now because the cullings went
Currently going away, you see.
Oh yeah, of course that's very true. Lots of people will be buying. There'll be lots of sick people, all making gobbling noises like turkey cocks after the new year. You know, because they've over turkeyed. You know, when you get to about day 5 and the sandwiches are all dry and curled up at the edges, and the lettuce leaves are limp.
I take it we're speaking from experience.
From experience, yeah.
So we know what the sandwiches will be like up at the farm next year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely awful, actually, in fact.
Leftover turkey from Christmas, like, you know.
Yep, stick it in the freezer. Stick it in the freezer.
What's a good idea?
That's what everybody does. Stick it in the freezer. I think I'll get a crown this year actually because I think there's more value.
You.
Yeah, yeah. A turkey crown I think it's better value for money actually. In fact, than a full bird. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah,
that's what we used to get, Tom, a crown.
A crown, yeah. Because it'll only be me and one of the lads. Actually, it'll be we'll pretend that we're a. What do they call it? A bubble or something or another? Yeah. I don't know what they're going to be doing by Christmas time anyway. Is it going to be a case of let the good times roll again and then on with the breaks again as soon as Christmas is over?
Everybody will be doing their own thing over Christmas.
Yeah.
I mean, their own thing.
Didn't you hear that Christmas, the COVID's having a time off over Christmas? Like, you know, it's coming.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, yeah. There's John.
It's going on furlough.
Hello, John.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
We're not going to pay it, are we? Why is on furlough?
Yeah, Boris is paying it.
Really?
It's keeping him in money with all his shares in all the vaccine companies.
Needs to do something.
It's quite scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. I had a letter from Walthew this morning.
Oh yes.
Dear friend.
Oh yeah. How much do they want?
Basically, what they're asking is that if anyone's got any spare money at all, can they donate it to Walthew?
That sounds reasonable.
They're losing more than 20,000 in room hire.
I can imagine.
And 25,000 in income from fundraising.
Yeah.
They're losing about 45,000 a year. They have had a legacy from a lady who had been supported for over 10 years. She had home visits through Walthew.
Oh, right.
But they've actually had some money from one of the lottery funding.
Oh, yes.
But not a lot. So, we donate to them anyway every year.
We do indeed. That's right. Yes.
We've already had quite a bit from the club anyway.
Yeah.
Year, so
yeah.
They're very grateful for anything they can get.
I'm sure they are. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Many thanks, season's greetings, and all the best wishes for a better 2021.
Ooh, yeah.
Well, we'll see about that one.
We're meeting one of the trustees of Walthew, and he says it costs it's just under $250,000 a year running costs on that building alone.
Yeah.
It's absolutely enormous. Actually, you would think, what on earth does it all go on?
Yeah, well, Stockport rates are not cheap.
Do they get anything from the lottery?
They have actually got something from the lottery this time.
All right.
And some other charitable funders.
Yeah, was that over and above what they normally get to? Because don't they get lottery funding as a sort of on an annual basis anyway?
I don't know. They've got to apply for it.
All right, right.
To apply for it all the time.
Yes.
Any funding like that.
Yes.
And of course, you've got all the paperwork you've got to sort out.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Good evening,
of course.
Good evening, sir.
We can hear you. Possibly hear you, but can't see you.
Right.
Keep going. We've got.
Are you having trouble with the audio or something? I seem to have the audio and the video on.
You've got it on?
Yeah. It says it says it is.
You're on a phone, aren't you? You're on an iPad.
Yeah, you use an iPad.
I'm on a tablet, yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they ask you to say, can we use the video, don't they?
It'll ask him for the camera.
Yeah.
No, I've got
it on mine.
According to this, it's on.
Oh, I won't worry about it. As long as you can see us, that's the other.
Oh, I can see you. Yeah.
Right, I'm going to put my mask on then.
Really?
Yeah.
Who are you going to be? Darth Vader? Oh, wait. Tom's putting his on.
Yeah, is it that cold in Warrington, Tom?
Yep. I definitely think, in fact, I need my hat on.
What's an excellent idea?
Well, John's got his one on. I don't see why I shouldn't have one on as well. And
Just
Chris has got one.
dazzling you because the reflection off my feed.
He's got an icon on.
Yeah. I'm just covering up my haircut.
It's not that bad.
I didn't think it was that bad either, actually. In fact, until there you go. You see, thing is, yeah.
You've not been out with the glue again, have you?
No, God, no. Oh, dear me. Yes, that was not.
I'm not going to ask you what you got stuck to, Tom.
I got stuck to a USB connector.
Is that cue for another song?
Could be. Yes, that's right. Yes, a thong. Just.
What was it on, Tom?
It was.
What port was it on? What port number?
Number 3. I can remember the port. It was number 3.
Only number 3?
Yeah, but it was on both my hands.
Right, go.
What I did was I tripped up on the cable when I was going out. I didn't actually trip on it. I just sort of came at it, and it went all sort of funny after that. And I discovered when I looked at it that it actually managed to split the. You know, when they make these ports, these USB plugs, they squeeze the two pieces of plastic, obviously, in some sort of press to bring the two halves together.
Yep.
And obviously, it's Chinese, obviously, it only costs £3.95, but basically, the connector was always a bit loose. But I just pressed when I pressed the two bits together, the actual thing connected again. So I tried repairing it before with the Gorilla Glue, but that wasn't so successful actually because it eventually went on me again. So I've tried some super glue this time, but of course super glue reacts beautifully with the fingers. Yeah. So also, in fact, it got very low viscosity. So here am I trying to run the super glue into the actual edge of the connector where the metal goes into the plastic and down the two splits on the side. And of course, I'm holding the outside of the thing between my fingers. And when it came to it, then I discovered, in fact, I had a perfect connection, but I also had two perfect fingers glued to the bloody plug. You see? So then I had to prise each finger off the plug, which is quite a painful business when it's been there for a bit too long and there's too many chemical bonds to the skin. Anyway.
Leave any skin behind.
I left a very slight amount actually on the side of the thing. Yes, that's right. It was quite painful. Yeah.
Use one of them.
What is? What's all? Yeah, right. Okay.
You're not talking about cutting the fingers off, are you?
Anyway. So in so doing that, there was some more super glue on the bloody plug that I didn't see. So the second hand now gets stuck to the other side of to the other edge of the plug. So I've now released the one, and I've got the other one glued up.
Oh dear.
Hello, Evan.
Evening, Evan.
Hi, Evan.
I see as host, I can unmute Bernard. Should we listen into his telephone conversation?
No, I don't think so.
just in case, he's calling somebody on the other side of the world,
He could be, yeah, that's right, yeah. Anyway, so it was
I better wait until he sits down anyway.
Yeah. So it was all rather, so be careful with super glue, that's all I can say.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was invented for.
Yeah, I know. I many years ago, when I was a lot younger, and still in work and stuff, I was hit on the head with a piece of steel one time at work, and I had a scar, which bled like hell. So I went to the infirmary with it, and the fella glued it with super glue.
Yeah.
Cyanoacrylate. It hurt like hell when he put it in the open wood, I can tell you. Ooh, gee whiz. Yeah, but it actually worked. It was quite successful, actually. My head didn't actually spill my brains out or anything like that. You know, well, maybe they did spill out, actually.
I don't think we should go any further with that part of the conversation.
Not really. No, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yes. Anyway, there you have it. Yeah. So where's Bernard's having a long one? It's I've never seen him being missing so long as this.
Yeah,
It's still there. You can see the wires moving a bit.
You can't. He's I promise you, he's not phoning me. he's probably he's tuned into something, isn't he? It's probably Dave on the phone.
It could be, actually, yes.
Yeah. How do I fix this rig, like, you know?
Oh, no. How do I fix the 3 regs? It's not just 1 reg, it's 3 regs.
Like, can I bring it round tomorrow?
Yeah, no, he'd be taking them round to me, actually. I've got first option, first rejection.
Have you?
He's going to bring him. He was round here today, actually, with his USB for putting on loading up his log. So he came round actually today. So yeah.
Shame we can't move the camera as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I see Chris has disappeared as well now.
Also, he has. Yes, that's right. But he's
back.
Right. The man.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
All I've got is bloody water.
Well,
I hope you're not bleeds for me.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, hey, it's finished.
Yep.
It's finished.
Yeah.
He's going to sit down now. It's finished.
I'll start clapping.
Yeah. Thank you all for coming. I hope it was very interesting, and we'll see you again next week. Right, can I take this chair?
Yes, go on. You can have the chair, and we'll sit in the sofa.
Oh, that's you, Nigel.
Yeah, right. Okay, I can hear myself coming through various different people's speakers, I think. So I think it's probably a good idea if everybody can mute their mics if they can, if they haven't done already. Remember that if you want to speak, then you can press the space bar, and I think you can probably do the same with phones and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So if you haven't muted it, just try muting it and see where we go.
You got my message, did you, Nigel?
A what?
My message.
I'm looking and I can't see it on the chat.
Right, it should be.
Where is it?
In the chat.
Yeah, I know. I've got the chat open. It's not there.
Right. Just what it is, we record these presentations.
Oh, I've started recording it anyway.
Yeah, I've done. Great stuff.
Oh, don't worry. We've got all the snide comments about Bernard on there already. So, you know. and the fact that we unmuted his mic while he was away. But there you go.
Thank you, Nigel.
His lodge numbers haven't come up because he's still sat there.
Pardon? I know. All right. Right. Good evening, everybody. Seems it's a long time since I've done one of these, so bear with me. All right. It's a bit of a learning curve as far as this is concerned. You've given me the share, haven't you? All right. But there's a couple of things I just want to say before we get started. And first of all, I can see Keith swinging away there. Well done on getting your M0. And great for getting through the exam. So I think round of applause. Yeah. You can unmute your mic for that one. All right. And there was another point that I was wafting through the old Radcom late as normal from my point of view. And I spotted in the silent keys that a chap called Walter Petty, M5AHR, had passed away in August. Now, Walter was a member of us going back some while, and I'm talking mid-2000s, that kind of thing. And I know that Bernard and Tom, I'm not going to say knew him quite well, but obviously has corresponded with him, talked with him in the past. And I know they've shared spaces at meetings and stuff like that. So I just thought I'd better make it known that it was one of our members, and he was a member for some time, and we sadly missed. I'm looking through the various things on the internet. I think he had a memorial service in Winslow, but I can't find anything to suggest how, where, what he actually when he passed away, apart from the fact it was in August. So, if you come across the name, please let us know. Right, okay. Apparently I can now share this screen here. Let's see where we go. Bloody hell, it works. Right, can you all see that?
I'm okay.
I'm okay.
Yep.
Good man. Let me just get rid of it myself because I can see all you popping up the side, and I don't want that. There we go. I got rid of that. Okay, right. FM satellites, and this is a view from India Oscar 83 Victor Juliet, which amazingly is where I am, and this is my entry into the world of amateur satellites, and of course that's today's date. Quickly moving on. But before I do, I think it's probably a good idea if I just give you a little bit of history about me. I'm this strange person that keeps popping up every so often. You're probably wondering who the hell I am. So just a few things about me. Age 60 in February. February last. I've worked for Lloyds Bank since 1978. I managed to escape. The tunnel managed to get me out about 10 days before my 40 years were up. I was 20 years in branch banking, moving around the northwest, occasionally a little bit further in distance. I've been to North Wales and down into Birmingham. My last office was the DC Centre in Manchester, which is that little building you can see on the right-hand side. It used to be the old Greater Manchester Council Town Hall. I say it was the DC Centre. I'm rather glad I'm not working there anymore, to say the least, because I can imagine that it is rather busy. Although, as far as I understand it, not many people are working there. They're all working from home, but there you go. Retired in September 2018. I'm a member of the Tywyn Railway. For those of you who don't know where that is, it's in mid-Wales. It's on the West Wales coast, just north of Aberystwyth. I'm a member of the Campaign for Real Ale, which explains why you keep seeing posts about beer and things like that. I'm also a Cheadle Town FC supporter, that little bunch, Park Road. It's quite interesting because it's right behind the cemetery and nobody will go in to collect the ball if it goes in there, especially when they're playing a game at night. We did have one, I think it was last year, which was on it was on Halloween. On Halloween's night, and there was no way anybody was going in that graveyard to get the ball back. Anyway, there you go. Some of you may also have seen my posts about the occasional home brewing. I've got a load of cider this year, so obviously I'm going to be fairly busy drinking it. And very good evening to Tony, my mate Tony, whose photograph you may see very, very shortly. He's not a member of the club, but he's been down to some of our meetings way in the past. So there we go. Moving on. Okay, so me and amateur radio. For those who don't know, I was originally licensed as G0RXA. That was in the days when there was Class A and Class B licenses. Passed my Morse test at Avondale and gained G0RXA. The Morse course was taken at that time by a chap called Rick Whittaker, for anybody who knows him, G4WAU, who's, I believe, is now in the other side of Manchester, dealing with the amateur radio over there. So everybody comes across him, just say hello to him from me. I've been a member of SRS since the early 90s. Chairman between 1997 and 2014, when thankfully Tony came riding across the hill to save my bacon. I like portable operating and contesting. As you can see, some of the photographs, they all seem to be out elsewhere, should we say, other than at home. I formed the Bar Packers contest group with a mate of mine, G0HJQ, which is Gary, who you can see here in the photograph down here. And there was also Dave, who some of you will be quite familiar, Dave, M1ANT. Here we are. That photograph, as you can tell, was taken quite a few years ago. It's with his van on top of Bowstones, where we used to play backpacking. Yes, the idea was we backpacked the back of his van. Gary on the left, me there, And if those you know him remember Christopher, and I can tell you he's a lot bigger now than he was then. But there you go. Oh, and that's Tony, by the way. Hello, Tony again. I'm not a rag chewer. I prefer short, quick contacts, which I suppose is one reason as to why I like the contesting side of things, because it's very, very short contacts. Here we are operating from the top of Lyme Park. Gary again, Tony, and note the headgear. Those were not stolen from Ivan, but actually purchased from Berlin underneath the Brandenburg Gate. But there holds another story, which maybe I'll go into at some point in time. Oh, and you may have noticed Bernard there. Seems to be happy about something. I don't know what it is, but there you go. Right, moving on. My introduction to space comms or space communications. Well, in fact, the first time I came across it was a meeting at Benjafold, where we used to meet prior to being at Walthew House. A meeting with a chap called Sean, M0GIA, and his mate Andy. Sean was a member of us at that time. He came in to talk about amateur satellites, and this is in the days before some of the FM satellites were up there. We had quite an interesting evening down there. Cold, I seem to recall, because it was deep into winter, I seem to recall, with all the doors open. But it kind of sparked an interest. And, of course, since then, we've had the ISS SST TV events, and one of the pictures I managed to download are there. I know that Roy has done a few bits and pieces as far as that's concerned in the past. And I believe they're also doing some of these pictures today and tomorrow. So 145-800, worthwhile having a listen to when the ISS is over, which I understand is reasonably early in the day at the moment. So just bear that in mind. If you've got a handheld or a 2-meter set, 145-800 is worthwhile having a look at. So there you go. The other side to it is, of course, the ARIS school events, and in particular the events that coincided with Tim Peake's Principia mission to the ISS. There were quite a number of school events. There's one of the videos, or one of the photographs from the video. I think that was the first one they did at Sandringham School. And of course, whilst it was not exclusively as far as the school is concerned, because you could again tune your 2-meter set or whatever it happened to be into the transmissions, and of course you'll be able to hear the stations. They come at least one side of the conversation coming down, usually the astronauts, of course. Although, to be fair, there was a school up in Bury, I think it was, a primary school that did take part in it, but there you go. And of course, there's also being able to hear the ham satellite downlinks on 2 meters. Yeah, anybody's got a handheld again. It is fairly easy with a small handheld to be able to hear the satellite communications if you know when and where to look, but that's a little bit for later. All right, so moving on again. I have to give this health warning at this stage. First of all, I'm not an expert, and we all know what an expert is. X marks the spot, and a spurt is liquid under pressure. But anyway, I'm not an expert, and it's not a definitive of how to do it. This is how I have had contacts through low Earth orbit FM satellites, and I have had quite a few, and I was just totting it up in the last few weeks or so. I've managed 10 countries and 23 squares through operating just purely through AO91 and SO50, and that's purely with a handheld. So it just shows what can be done. Anyway, so you, if you've had any kind of experience with dealing with satellites, you may have other ideas, perhaps other methods. The only request goes out there. If you have, then please share with the rest of us. And of course, you've got the option here now just to say something perhaps at the end, or if you want to chip in by hitting your space button, then please feel free to do so. Okay, into satellites itself. And so far, I've managed to spell satellites correctly. I don't know what it is, but I keep getting it wrong. Thanks to the spell checker for getting it right. Anyway, the information I've managed to do, and it says 1st of April there. I trust it's not a joke, but this is gleaned from the internet. The Union of Concerned Scientists tell us that there's 2,666 active satellites up there, of which 1,918 are low Earth orbit satellites. You can just imagine how easy it is for all this lot to bang together if you don't get it in the right order. Anyway, ESA, that's the European Space Agency, estimates there's 29,000 objects in orbit larger than 10 centimeters. Now, I suppose from us, our point of view here down on Earth, 10 centimeters is not that great when you look at it. But I suppose up in Earth, when it's traveling around, certainly at the speeds that they travel around in orbit, they can punch a hole of quite a size in things like the ISS, etc. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff up there. When you consider there's 170 million objects larger than a millimeter, well, you know, there's quite a bit of debris going on. I know there's moves afoot to try and get rid of some of it, but you know, that's beyond what we talk about here. Okay, so amateur satellite types. Well, there's a number of different satellite types up there. The ones I'm going to talk about tonight are the FM satellites, which to all intents and purposes are the easy satellites such as SO50 and AO91. Each satellite has a number which designates which one they are. There are linear type SSB satellites. AO7 and RS44 are examples, and they tend to be ones where you can use SSB and CW1. There are even a number which have PSK31. So you can use, it's a different type of operating, one that I've not graduated to, but will do at some point in time. And then there's the AO100, which is the geostationary satellite, which was put up by the Qataris with the help of the German AMSAT, which is a geostationary satellite, which has quite a sizable coverage pattern in the sense that stations in Brazil can be worked right the way across into the Far East with the satellite stationary over the equator. Then there's the International Space Station, which is the obvious one. I mean, it's a rather big satellite to say the least, but at the end of the day, there are on there amateur facilities. I'll come into Iris in a bit, but there's a repeater up there. There is a facilities to do APRS, and of course, mentioning the fact that these astronauts do schools contact. So there's a whole caboodle of stuff in the ISS which is available to be used. Moving on. So the question is, what satellites are available to work for MyQTH? Well, there's four basic ones at this point in time. There are a number of other FM ones, but they tend to need a bit more power than I have got to be able to get into them. SO50 is a favourite. It's been around for donkey's years. AO91 and AO92 is part of the FOX project, which is an American project by AMSAT North America. And those are two satellites which were two of four. There was AO85, which expired roughly about 18 months ago, and AO95, which unfortunately didn't do what it was supposed to do. It's still up there. That was the latest one that went up. Can't remember how long ago it was now, but it's up there. But all it does is send telemetry. You can't actually work through it because of the failure of some of the equipment. And recently, there is now, thanks to some new equipment being transported up to the ISS, there is a repeater up there as well now that can be used. Although it tends to be at infrequent times, depending upon what the astronauts are doing up there, such as if there happens to be a launch or new crew coming on board or crew departing, then the amateur facilities do have a tendency to be switched off in favour of other things, which I suppose is only reasonable, really. Okay, so the first one of that group is SO50. I say this perhaps is the oldest one that's still up there that really is of use. It has turned to be one of my favourite satellites to use. As you can see, it was launched on the 20th of December 2002. It was launched from Baikonur Cosmodrome, i.e. the Russian side of things, and the size is 25 centimetre cubes. Very light, 10 kilograms. Here we are, we've got a number of terms to be used, perigee and apogee. Perigee is basically the point that closest to the Earth. Apogee is the point where it's furthest away in terms of its orbit. So closest point, 603 kilometers, furthest away, excuse me, 713 kilometers. It takes roughly about 98 minutes to orbit the Earth. When we get onto a little bit later, you'll see the fact that you need to be aware of what time the passes are. You can't just simply walk outside and turn your aerial up to the sky and work a satellite. These things are spinning around the Earth, apart from the geostationary one, that is. But these things are spinning around the Earth, so you need to know exactly when it's going to be over your area. The FM satellites tend to be have an uplink. They tend to use 2 meters and 77s, although there is one that uses 23 centimeters as well. So you have an uplink on one frequency, downlink on another band, and can be vice versa. You'd also need to ensure that you're sending a CTCSS code to speak through the satellite, just as you would do with a normal repeater on the Earth. And just bear in mind that GB3MN or GB3MR, effectively they're similar things, apart from the fact they're operating on the same band. These are actually spinning around the Earth at an amazing miles per hour, should we say. The one thing about SaudiSat is that it does have a timer on there. So it's a bit like a timeout on a normal repeater around the country. So after 10 minutes, it will shut down. So you need to send a transmission up on the uplink, but this time with a slightly different CTSS tone to actually arm the timer again, which is a bit unusual as far as this particular satellite is concerned. But the main thing is that normally when it's coming across, the satellite will be open. You'll hear the transmissions taking place, other amateurs working it. So in theory, you won't need to do anything. But there have been occasions when it's been crossing over here. One was, for instance, when I did the G8 SRS 100. Oh, sorry, the other chap that did it, can't remember his name, out in the Wirral. He did the G8 SRS 100. The timer shut down just as it was right overhead here. And I managed to reopen it so we can get back into it. But there you go. So anyway, that's SO50. Very popular satellite, but I have to say, one of my favorites at this point in time. I suppose the SaudiSat kind of gives it away, the fact that the Saudis are involved. Okay, the next one is AO91, or otherwise Fox 1B. There was a Fox 1A, which I say was AO85, which expired roughly about 18 months ago. Which was a shame because it was a very good satellite. Even from a small handheld, you could hear that when it flew over. And some of the contacts you can hear on it were quite good because obviously it covers quite a distance. But this is the second satellite in the Fox series. Launched 18th of November 2017 from Vandenberg in the USA. 10 centimeter cubes. That photograph is of AO91. And to be honest, it doesn't actually give a good perspective as to how small it actually is, but these things are small. And bear in mind, they've got a couple of antennas inside them, usually linked around the satellite itself. These things are extremely small, to say the least. And of course, as being small, good evening, Phil. They also weigh quite a lot, not as lot as well. So there you go. Perigee 61 kilometers, apogee 826, nothing to be really too bothered about. The other side to it is, again, similar time period, i.e. 97 minutes, as far as the orbit is concerned. Again, this one is slightly different to the SaudiSat. This has an uplink on 77s and a downlink on 2 meters. That could be more problematic as far as I'm concerned because of a situation which we'll see a little bit later on. It's a little bit more difficult to actually get into. Again, there's a CTS-CSS tone, and that's 67 hertz, which was similar to which was SO50. They all tend to be the same CT-CSS tone, so you can program it up in your memories when you get around to doing it. AO92. Now, this was the third in the Fox series. Again, launched the 18th of November 2017 from Vandenberg again. Similar kind of characteristics to the AO91, because at the end of the day, it's coming from the same factory, so to speak, i.e. the USA, as part of this Fox program. Difference with this one is that as well as uplink on 77s and downlink on 2 meters, it also got an uplink on 23 centimeters. And what they do is they vary the days. The program was to allow 23 centimeters to be used as an uplink on a Wednesday, with the rest of the time scale being used as far as 70 centimeters is concerned. Now, the sad thing about this one is that I've been listening for this one for a number of weeks. I haven't heard it, and I haven't seen any kind of notifications to whether it's still being used or not. It's still available, which is a bit of a shame because, again, it's got quite a decent coverage, as most of these satellites have. There is a new AO90, another Fox, I think it's Fox 1F or Fox 1E planned, and that's due to go up, but I believe that's going to be a SSB type, CW type, linear type satellite, which hopefully is going to be before the end of the year, but that's going to be a slightly different satellite to work, but not covered by this, should we say. So that's AO92 if it happens to be around. And the fourth one is the Iss Repeater. Now, I think I said before, this is somewhat new. It's a repeater that's situated in the Columbus module, and it's part of the interoperable radio system. Now, this is a new system that's recently gone up there to replace the previous one, which was an Ericsson handheld linked to an antenna on the outside of the spacecraft. This is includes a new JVC Kenwood D710GA transceiver. Effectively, it's a dual band transceiver. There's one gone up for the US side, and there's also supposedly going to be another one goes up on the Russian side as well, so effectively making two. And the system here is supposed to be set up to allow for the repeater that we're talking about here, so for people to actually use it as a repeater, but also at the same time to be used as an APRS repeater, which has been done in the past, and also for schools contacts, which are pretty regular. There's even one, I think, down to be done today in one part of the world somewhere. So these are quite regular. So what they're hoping for is that this will develop into quite a reasonable amateur facility on board the ISS. And at some point in time, it will also be able to send pictures, real-time pictures. Excuse me. So that's something that's now in the ISS. It was activated on the 3rd of September 2020. There's 15 orbits per day, or 15.54 orbits today of the ISS. I'm sure many of you have seen it going over. In this particular area, you can roughly say that it's going to be about 4, maybe 5 good orbits, certainly as far as seeing it is concerned. But the potential is that for those that you can't see, there could be another 2 or 3 which are very low passes, which are still workable with the appropriate antenna and equipment. Again, there's an uplink on 2 meters, and the downlink is on 70 centimeters. So very, very similar to SO50. And again, there's a need for a CTCSS tone, which is 67 hertz, which is similar to all the rest of them, apart from the timer that's on SO50. I've not actually heard this one yet. When I was preparing this, the ISS was around early morning, between midnight and something like 4 or 5 o'clock. So, to be perfectly honest, I didn't think my situation would go too much to actually go and get up and listen for it at that time. I know, no commitment, but there you go. But since that time, obviously, time has moved forward, and I have seen reports that it's quite easy to work with a reasonable handheld and the appropriate antenna, a beam antenna. And of course, when it's dark, the difference is, and it's clear, you can actually see the thing moving across the sky. So it's fairly easy to point your antenna towards it to be able to work through it. And contacts of some distance have been made through this repeater, as there have been through the other ones as well. Because I've been fortunate to make some good contacts. I even managed into Ukraine the other day, and that's on 5 watts. So there you go. Right. So these are all the satellites. You need to decide what you want to do next. Decide which satellite you want to work. How to operate. Do you want to operate portable or from a shack? Yeah. There are a number of people who are happy to just simply sit in the shack, use their 2-meter dual band with the white stick antenna that's outside. Yes, it's feasible to do so. I'll go into that in a minute. What information do you need to know? The satellite status, times and details of passes. Are there any protocols? Which, there tends to be protocols with most things these days, but certainly there's a protocol as far as working through the satellites are concerned. What equipment you need, how to log the contacts, and what to do afterwards. Because at the end of the day, you're making contacts to the satellites, but it's just like anything else. You're probably doing it for a reason. So, what to do afterwards. So which satellite do you want to work? The points to consider. At the time of preparation, AO91 and SO50 are operational. AO92 is not active as far as I'm concerned. I've had the receiver waiting to hear it, and there's nothing actually physically coming through it. I can't see anything on the web, on the internet to suggest there's any problem with it, but I'll give you a better clue as far as that is concerned in a minute. The ISS and its repeater are not always around at a convenient time or switched on, like I've mentioned before. Passes during peak periods, i.e. daytimes and weekends, especially weekends, can be very busy and fraught. And I'll give you a clue of that a little bit later on. Evening or early morning passes are quieter, probably because most people are in bed. The Doppler shift is something that you need to be aware of. This is where I mentioned, as far as programming your rig, you need to be aware of things that perhaps get in the way. Now, as a beginner, which at the end of the day I am, I prefer SO50, but why? Well, I'll give you a clue in a bit as to why that is the case. The main reason is the uplink is on 2 meters, so Doppler shift is less of an issue on the transmit side, but you'll get an idea of that in a few minutes when I show you. All right, so how to operate. Do you operate from your shack or do you operate portable? There's two photographs there. First one is classic example of somebody operating portable. And the other side to it is classic shack set up for operating in a shack. My personal preference is this, but that's a different story. So operating from a shack, what have you got? Well, first of all, you've got your comfort. Okay, so there's no issue about getting up first thing in the morning to be able to work these satellites. You can do. If it's throwing it down with rain or snow or ice or whatever it happens to be, it's not quite as bad operating from your shack as it is perhaps from you stood outside in the back garden, clothes and all that kind of thing on, freezing to death. The other side to it is you've got more equipment available to you. Trust me, it's very hard when you've got two hands and stood outside with a handheld and a rig trying to do everything. It can be a little bit tricky, but again, you'll see that in a minute. There's more power available to you. You've got steerable antennas. I would point you to an article in Radcom by this chap, like Chris M0KPW, who gave quite a good write-up about operating with just simply a dual band radio. If you've got 2m77s with a reasonable bit of power and you've got a white stick antenna outside, it is feasible to work through these satellites. And he gives quite a good write-up on that. And I have heard this guy, he lives in Cumbria. I have heard this guy on these satellites. And if you can see his map, these are the map of his squares that he's managed to work. They can get some quite good distances. He hasn't shown anything across the pond, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has done across to the US and Canada, particularly as if it's a low pass, he may be able to get into it pretty well. That's another story. The other side is portable. Garden, obvious thing. Backyard. I think that's what Tom's got, isn't it? A backyard as opposed to a garden. Any kind of open space. There's a car park. Again, if you've got a supermarket car park with a reasonable low set of buildings, people might start to ask what you do in mine. But if you've got a car park with a reasonable view of the sky, that's always useful, especially a beach. If you've got a pass that's taking place across in front of you, then being on a beach with nothing in the way is great, because you've got nothing to restrict your signal. And of course, on a hilltop, I've often thought about giving this a try from up at Common Barn Farm, because the views of the skies up there are quite good, to say the least. And certainly some low passes, it would be quite interesting to see how far you can work on those. There's an indication as to as to what kind of setups you can do to physically work in these kind of places. And of course, with it being a small amount of equipment, you can take them virtually anywhere and set them up. And there are a lot of people out there who do this. One point I didn't mention there was sailboat. There is a guy on the regularly on the satellites who takes trip out in his sailboats, activating some of these maritime squares, and he's can be heard many times operating off the coast of France and Belgium and places like that. So yes, I've worked in. Okay, so what do you need to know? Well, there's a number of things you need to know. First of all is your Maidenhead locator square. Next thing is the satellite status, i.e. if you're trying to work through it, is it actually working? The times of the passes, where to look in the sky. There's no point pointing your antenna at one part of the sky and it's on another, because you won't work anything then. If you're using a white stick or an omnidirectional one, then possibly you will get away with that. If you're operating portable, that won't. What frequencies to use, and the other side to it is dealing with Doppler shift. I suspect if we went into Doppler shift, we could be here all night talking about it, what that means, but I'll go into that in a minute. Okay, Maidenhead square. Hands up in the air, who knows what their Maidenhead square is? Well, the ones I can see quite a few going up, right? Okay, so it's quite an easy, it's based on latitude and longitude. The calculation to work it out, I'm sure, as far as a mathematician is concerned, is quite easy to do, but there are plenty of places you can go to help you out. A lot of the GPS receivers allow you to receive your or quote your Maidenhead square. There's also a number of websites you can go to where you can put in your national grid locator. Say your Sugar Juliet, your Sugar Delta, that kind of thing, and it will convert it into your into a Maidenhead locator. There is also another website that you can go to, which is What's My Locator, and it just simply asks for your postcode, and it will tell you where you are. It will also give you your WAB square. So if you didn't know your WAB square, which of course is based on the national grid locator, then it will give you that as well. So that's fairly easy to do. A lot of the mobile phone apps, there's plenty of mobile phone apps out there which will give you a locator square. And of course, locator square is not just simply used for satellites. It's used in many different applications as far as radio is concerned, especially if you're dealing with some of the contests, certainly on VHF. And of course, as Keith will tell you, on the old FD8 and FD4s, you need to know your locator, because that will tell, that's the exchange as part of the exchange on there. So once you've got hold of your locator, because that's one of the exchanges that takes place, the next thing is to suss out what the status is as far as the satellites is concerned. And the place to go here is the AMSAT North America website. And on here, you'll find, if you look down here, you've got a whole list of all the various satellites that's up there and monitored by the AMSAT North America website. This table covers 5 days. So in this case, you can see I was looking from 4th of November through to the 9th of November. 6 days. All right. Can't count. Yeah, all right. I know. And it'll tell you the status of the various different satellites. So basically, people are monitoring, amateurs are monitoring these satellites, and they will report as to whether they've been able to hear them or not. Okay. So just say, for instance, we're looking at AO91. Now, if you look at this table across the top here, what you're really looking for is the blue square, and that says the transponder and the repeater is active. Okay. So if we look down here, here's AO91 at the bottom. Okay. And if you look along, you can see there's a whole load of blue along there, which says to us that that transponder is, that repeater, that satellite is active. And the numbers inside the boxes says the number of people who have actually reported the fact that the satellite is active. So we know that AO91 is active. Conversely, if we go up here, here's AO92. and AO92 is a whole load of red. So only a few people are monitoring it, but we know that as far as the red side of it is concerned, no signal. So at the end of the day, AO92 is not active. SO50 is a little bit further down on this shot, which I couldn't quite cram in, which is a bit of a shame, but there you go. There's AO85. That was the one that fell over, I say, roughly about 18 months ago, which is a hell of a shame because that was a very good satellite. Okay, moving on. So once you've worked out which satellites you want to go for, and logically speaking, say for instance we're going for SO50, then there's a number of places you can look as far as the times of the passes are concerned. And this is another reason why your knowing your Maidenhead square comes into play. One of the things is, first of all, going straight to the AMSAT NA website, because again, as with the satellite status, they're able to give you an update as to what the times of the passes are. Another place to look, if anybody's familiar with heavensabove.com, a very good site for going as far as astronomy is concerned, because not only will it give you information about satellites, it'll also give you information about planets, stars, the sight of the sky. You can say what time it is in your area. You can simply print out a map or whatever, take it outside, look upside, and there's the stars. But I'm sure there are plenty of other apps that do that, or places that do that as well, because there are plenty of mobile phone apps around as well to be able to do that. So one of them is a app called SatSat, which you can download, set it up for your, as far as I know, it's available for both Android and iPhone. I've got it on the iPhone, and once you've input all your information into it, i.e. where you are, it will download all the information for all the various satellites. You can pick which ones you want to look at, and it will tell you into the future when these satellites are going to be over. Very, very useful piece of equipment. Okay, so we were to look at the AMSite North America website for the predictions, and here I've gone for SO50. So we've got the AMSat online satellite pass predictions. And the one thing that it needs to know, obviously, is where you are. So you can do one or two things. You can either input your latitude and longitude, or if you've got your, if you've already got your grid square or Maidenhead locator square, you can simply put that in there as well. And that is the easiest thing to do. Just put your grid square in there. You can tick it to save it for later use. So you know, like these things, it will go back and remember it next time you use it. So you click on that, put that in there, and then you click the button that says predict. And with any luck, here's one I prepared earlier. All right, so it'll come up with this. And again, I think I was looking at the 9th of November here. No, sorry, it's a bit later, 16th. So what it gives you is this table. And it'll tell you the AMSAT online satellite pass predictions for SO50. It's divided up into a number of columns. So you've got your date in UTC. So you need to be aware of the fact that if you're doing this in summertime, you need to add on the extra hour, because obviously this is in UTC. So it'll give you the date. It'll give the AOS, that's the acquisition of signal. You try saying that after a Guinness. Chris, you try saying that after a Guinness. Anyway. Right, so you got there. You see, I've got a problem now, and only in water. Acquisition of signal. Then got your duration. That's your duration of the pass. That's the duration of the time when it's going to be visible, as far as you're concerned. It's got the azimuth. That azimuth, again, another technical term. AOS azimuth. The azimuth is the point on the compass where the satellite will rise above the horizon. So I'll show you a little bit more about that later on, but just be aware of that. That's the point on the compass. So if you think where south is, that's just to the west of south. So that's where that satellite will rise. The maximum elevation is 28. Elevation is in degrees. Okay, so you're looking across the horizon, it's 0 degrees. You're looking straight up, it's 90. So the maximum elevation it's going to get to is 28 degrees above the horizon. And of course, you're going to be following it in an arc across the horizon. All right. So you need to be aware of that. So rather than pointing the antenna straight up, if you're using a Yagi of some time, then you don't need to do that, because at the end of the day, you'll miss the satellite. what you need to be doing is pointing it, not that far above the horizon. Of course, that is a reasonably low pass. So the potential there is that you could be working quite some distance. And it is recommended, as far as beginners are concerned, that they try working low passes, because the inference of Doppler shift isn't so great. Anyway, that's another story. Right, azimuth, maximum elevation azimuth. The maximum elevation azimuth is the point on the compass where, I'm back in that Guinness again, mate. There's a point where it's going to be its highest, all right? So you're working through 190 degrees, you're working through to 138 and then beyond. And then the azimuth for the loss of signal is going to be 50 degrees. So in effect, it's going right across you, right? And then the loss of signal will be 1553. And that is your 12 minutes 53 pass. And it does the same, each one going down. And these are the passes that are going to be visible as far as you're concerned in your particular area. Bearing in mind, when I was originally entering the Maidenhead locator, your grid square, I put my elevation as being 0. So effectively as if it was right at sea level. So there is a potential, therefore, that it's going to dip beyond the horizon beforehand, and rise, take some time to rise above it. So just be aware of that. You can then click on the button. Can I go back? I can go back. There's a view the current location of SO50. So you can click that point there, and it will take you into a visible plot of where SO50 is. So at the time I did it, SO50 was over here, and it will be following this plot here, coming round and then following that plot there. And the potential is you're going to need you're going to see possibly 2, maybe 3 passes in a period. Certainly as far as AO 90 and 91 and 92 are concerned, you tend to get 2 passes roughly within, obviously, an hour and a bit minutes of each other. SO50 you may get a bit more, but that's the way that works. Sorry about that. That was my bottle clicking. Okay, so if you're going to do this, what's the equipment that you need? Bear me a minute, just playing. So we've got a programmed handheld, normally a programmable handheld radio, or something like an FT817, and I've used both. All right. So normally a program handheld radio or FT817. I've just seen Pete's comment about GPS gives you your altitude. Yep, yeah, pretty good for folks running Linux as well. Yeah, okay. I think I do have a GPS receiver which does actually give altitude as well. And to be honest, sometimes what I do is, from my point of view, I take it from the airport as well, because I'm not that million miles away from it. And of course, they get out their height, and of course, it can input at the same time. But it's one point where sometimes I do miss out doing it when I'm doing the. But you tend to find on the apps, they'll work out your where your location is, but also at the same time give you your height anyway. So that's one way around it. But yeah, I take your point. So the equipment required for operating alfresco. Yeah, I say normally a handheld radio or an FT817 or anything that's portable like that. I have seen people use dual band radios, but they need a table, or perhaps they need a tripod to stand the antenna on, or something like that. The way I've been operating is purely portable in the true sense of the word, by just simply a handheld antenna and also the radio. When I've been using the FT817, I've strapped it around my neck and just held it that way, with the antenna in one hand and the microphone in another hand. That's the way I've worked with that one. It is recommended that if you can do, is to use full duplex capability. The reason for that is that as well as transmitting, if you're using duplex, you can also hear your own signal coming back through the satellite to know that you're actually getting in the first place. There are a number of radios around of that type. I believe there's a Trio that does it, one of the Trio handhelds, and possibly a few others as well. But I personally haven't done that. Some people actually use two radios. They have one for transmitting and one for receive. And of course, the suggestion is, if you do this, is you use headphones as well to stop the feedback kind of system of your own receive signal going back through the satellite. So if you were going to do this, just bear that in mind. I say use the antenna is usually a handheld or tripod mounted Yagi, especially if you're out portable. Mobile phone's very useful because, like I say, you've got the satellite passes on there, plus the fact to all intents and purposes, they also have compasses on them as well. So if you're not sure, as far as your location is concerned, where a particular azimuth is going to be, then you can use the compass in the mobile phone to do it. Or if you've got a standalone compass, you can do it that way. Notebook and a pencil, at the end of the day, it's a menial piece of equipment, but if you're out in the open, then it's perfectly worthwhile noting down the dates and times of the passes, so you can be ready for them when they come along, plus the various pieces of information like azimuth, the headings, the acquisition of the signal time, and the loss of acquisition, the loss of signal times, that kind of thing. Headphones, as I just mentioned. Another one is a voice recorder. And the reason for that is that if you've got one hand on the microphone or the radio, you've got one hand on the antenna, or if you're using a tripod, you've got a hand on the tripod as well, then it's very difficult to log your calls or log your contacts. So a voice recorder, actually physically recording the contacts, is very, very useful, especially as if it's got the time there as well, because you can simply then go back to it after the pass has taken place and listen to your contacts with the time there and just note them down. Camera's useful if you want to film yourself doing it. Again, it's another way of actually recording your contacts. I mentioned voice recorder there again. What I've done with my contacts is using a program to break up the audio. I've actually stored those contacts away so I can go back and listen to them at a later time. The obvious, obviously, is another pair of hands, but you've only got one pair of hands. You can't do much about that, I'm afraid, unless you're from ET or something like that. Okay, so programming your radio memories. Okay, e.g. SO50, SARISAT 1C. This is purely as an example. Here we go. Uplink is on that frequency. Downlink is on there. 77s. You need a CTCSS tone. There's a timer of 10 minutes, and you need a separate CTCSS tone, 74.4, to actually arm the timer should it run out whilst you're trying to get into it. And here we have a list of frequencies to program. Why do we do that? Well, we've got a thing called Doppler shift. Right? I'm not going to go into great depth about this because we'll be here all night. All right, but it's the basis of Doppler shift is that a change in frequency as a result of a fast-moving object, such as a satellite. The example everybody uses is for example, if you stood at a bus stop with a straight road in front of you, and you've got a police car coming towards you at one side with his siren going, then he's going to be the siren's going to sound higher than it is when it's passed. So the frequency is always going down. So the same consequence happens, or same thing happens as far as the satellite is concerned. So you need to start with receiving the satellite. You need to start off by receiving it at a number of kcs above the center frequency, and then tune down to receive it to the lower frequency below after the satellite is past you. Now that tends to be more pronounced with higher passes and not so much with lower passes, which is one reason why they say for beginners, try starting by using lower passes where in effect the satellite is passing you as an arc across the horizon. If in fact it's an overhead pass, then you've got this situation of Doppler effect where you need to tune your radio to a frequency which is a number of kcs above and tune down as the satellite goes past you and away from you. So to do that, what they do is we program the memories in your radio with a number of different frequencies. And for example, here I've gone for SO50. So SO50 has a center frequency, the receive on 436795, and the transmit on 145850. Now, it doesn't seem to be, it's not as pronounced the Doppler shift on 2 meters as it is on 70 centimeters. It's still there, but it isn't pronounced as to have such an effect. But on 70 centimeters, it certainly does. My waitress has just arrived. Thank you very much. Need that. Okay, so we've got a situation where in order to program our radio to receive or use the satellite, we need to set a number of different frequencies in place. And like I say, we start off by setting up the frequency for the transmit of 145850, and then the incremented receive frequencies starting higher than the middle frequency or the center frequency of 436795. And here the suggestion is do it by 10 kcs, moving through 5 kc steps until we get to the total loss of signal of 436785. Remembering that also with SO50, and this isn't needed with AO91 or AO92, and as far as I know, the ISS satellite, you need also another channel set up so we can rearm the timer if we need to do so. So most people will set up their radios with 6 frequencies in their memories, or 6 memories, each with these different channels in. What happens is when the satellite is approaching, they'll start off on 1, certainly if it's an overhead pass. So we'll start off on number 501. This is the indication that this person, you can use anything, keep your memory jogged, should we say, as to which one you're using. I happen to use AOS, acquisition of signal 1, 2, then center, then loss of signal 1, 2, should we say. But this is the way this guy has done it. And basically it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And each one you need to tune as the satellite is going across, apart from the center one, that is. So you need to be aware of that. And I find that working through SO50 is easier than working through AO91 because the situation is reversed in that the transmit frequency on AO91 is on 70 centimeters, and the Doppler shift is a lot more critical on there than it is on 2 meters. It's easier to get into SO50 because you don't really need to change your transmit frequency, whereas you're constantly changing the receive frequency right the way through the range to be able to receive the satellite. Because if you're just simply 5 kcs off on SO50, you won't hear it. It's as simple as that. So there's a good operating practice for beginning and also for experienced operators as well. And this appears on the AMSAT NA website. And it's anybody that's worth or wanting to get involved, it's worth having a look at that site because there's a lot of information there. It's very, very similar to operating on HF to some extent, certainly as far as a contest is concerned. Because like I said before, it's quick fire contacts, especially if you've got a very busy pass during the middle of a day or weekend, then you're likely to get people calling from all over the place. It's as simple as that. So first thing you need to do is open your squelch. There's no point going there, tuning your radio, standing there with your antenna and not opening the squelch because you won't hear anything unless the satellite is right over the top of you. So you need to open the squelch right open. The one thing is to share the pass. You'll find that certainly in busy ones, there's a lot of people trying to get in there, right? So, and it's not just simply your satellite to do so. Okay, some of the later passes or the early morning passes, you might find perhaps there's 2 or 3 people there. All right, you can have maybe a few words conversation, but for the majority of the time, you've got people calling in, possibly from all over Europe, trying to get in there. So you need to share the pass around, all right? So if somebody's having a QSO with somebody and you will hear somebody call and then somebody go back to them, then let them finish before calling over them. I suppose at the end of the day, that's standard radio practice. That's what we should be doing anyway. Now, if there are people on there and you've already worked them, maybe on a prior pass, or you've worked them earlier that day, or you've already worked them during that pass themselves, then don't keep calling them, because somebody else will want to do so. And at the end of the day, you've only got the square once. It's not like SOTA where you can claim it every other day. You can claim a square or a hill every day. This, once you've worked it, that's another square ticked off. That's another country ticked off, should we say. Go on to the next one. If you find there's a person up there you know, and the satellite is quiet, there's no other contacts, then fair enough, you can have a short QSO with them. But, don't repeat contacts just purely for the sake of it. And don't call CQ. You'll hear the example I've got here later on. You'll hear people do call CQ. It's a little bit frowned on. At the end of the day, just make the point that you're there. G0RXA, and I usually say an India Oscar 83, and let somebody come back to you if there's nothing else happening on the satellite. And of course, use standard issue phonetics. Rare and portable stations take priority. Yeah, like I mentioned before, there was this chap who goes out activating maritime squares. He's effectively a rare station, because if he's activating somewhere in the middle of the North Sea, should we say, then somebody's likely to want it. That's a bit like WAB to some extent. But at the end of the day, let those stations get through, and only use the minimum power required. In theory, as far as SO50 is concerned, and AO91, 5 watts will get you through. There are people out there using more power, certainly from dual band mobile rigs, that kind of thing that they're using. FT847s are like base station satellite rigs, and of course there's the IC9710, the new one from ICOM. There's people trying to get in through there. So there are people out there using a lot of power, but you can still get in using 5 watts, and I've proved you can do it. But you are, to some extent, a little minnow, should we say. So just bear that in mind. Work the new stations. If there are new stations out there, I've heard M7s on there trying to get into the satellite. People giving them a bit of space. There's quite a few M3s and quite a few M6s out there who are having a go, because at the end of the day, it's it's a cost of a handheld, and even if they've gone away and made their own antenna, should we say, they've tried to get in. And I put at the end there, sometimes just listen. It's worthwhile, if you're new to the game, it's just finding your pass, pointing your antenna at it, and then just listening to see what happens. And again, some of the busy satellite passes during the day or at weekends are worthwhile having to listen to, and it gives you an indication as to what you can actually receive on these things. Bear in mind, I'm just talking about 2 satellites here, of which you're possibly going to get in the region of between about 6, 7, 8 passes a day. Then it's worthwhile having a look at. Okay, I'm going to try and show a video now. I know when we've tried this, it's never worked, so I'm going to give it a go and see what happens. All right, so bear me a minute. What I would ask is if you could try and up your volume for the first part of it, because I did take it whilst I was using the camera. Can you see that? Oh, has it come through yet? Bear me a minute. As always in these scenarios, we're having trouble with the video. Right, I'm going to just play amongst yourselves for a minute. good afternoon. And this is annoying. It was working for me this afternoon. It's not doing now. Bear me a minute. Sorry, have you any experience with using video?
Your video on your desktop and share it.
Right. Good. Videos on the desktop, right?
You need to get rid of this one now. Just drink it to the bottom.
In a sec. If I get rid of that, if I put the video, hey!
Well done.
And welcome to G0RXA. Fine as on a rather bright sunny day, sunny winter November day. Afternoon, just after 1 o'clock, sun shining, blue skies all around. At the moment, it wasn't earlier on, it was a little bit cloudy, and there's a light breeze, so I hope the breeze isn't affecting the sound too much. Anyway, thinking about satellites. First of all, this morning we had a couple of good passes of AO91. I managed to work one station on the first pass, a French station. I think it was Fox 5 Delta, Romeo Delta, I think it was. So that was pretty successful. But I thought it would be a good idea just to show the type of equipment that I've used during these passes to secure some reasonable contacts. And just to show that you can in fact make contacts through these FM satellites reasonably easy. Well, it's not always 100%. There will be passes where you don't make any contacts because there are people using higher power out there, which will get through, especially if they're using steerable antennas and sat in the comfort of their own shacks, should we say. But this is part of the game, being able to get out in the open and do this from an area such as this, maybe somewhere a little bit more open, say in a car park which has got nothing around it, or a headland or a hilltop, or maybe even on a beach or somewhere. But it's all part of the fun. Okay, so some of the equipment that we're using during these activations, some mundane to be honest, because the first piece really is piece of graphite, i.e. a pencil, and a notebook, because you may have looked at the AMSAT website to get details of the passes as to your particular location. Memory is not a good thing as far as I'm concerned, so it's always a good idea to note them down, and that's exactly what I use a notebook for. By the way, it's a lifeboat notebook purchased from one of their local shops in Fleetwood, so if you're ever out that way and they are open, then worth dropping a few pence or pounds, should we say, in the box and purchasing more of these, because they're very, very useful. But notebooks are available from every other establishment. But so it's very, very useful to have one of these things handy, just to make it out. Yes, and you can also use them for making a note of your contacts, but as we'll see in a minute, probably not a good idea to do it during the pass as is actually taking place. So, because things are a little bit fast and furious, and let's face it, all your hands are going to be put to use anyway, unless you're ET or something out of Star Trek has got more than one set of arms. There you go. So that's the notebook and pencil. The other thing is a mobile phone. Yes, the trusty old mobile phone, which seems to get used for a load of things these days. there are apps out there. There are many apps which serve the purpose of tracking satellites. One in particular that I've been using is SatSat, which is available for iPhone, and I believe it is available for Android as well. And this allows you to set up the various satellites that you want to work, and maybe a few more, from your own location. And it will give you an indication as to when passes are taking place, what times, when the satellite is coming into view, how long it will take, where to point your antenna, and things like that. So that's very useful, especially as you're out in the open, should we say. So the app that I use gives you the azimuth, and that is a technical term made basically for the location or the point in the compass where the satellite will appear from, or the acquisition of the signal, or AOS as it's sometimes known. So the acquisition of the signal is a time when that will happen, but the azimuth is the point on the compass where the signal will come up from. So say for instance the pass this morning, the second pass this morning rose at, let me see, where is it, 202 degrees. So the app will give you an idea as to where to actually look for the satellite to appear, and also where it will disappear, the loss of signal, and where the centre point will be. And the centre point, in theory, is the point where it will be at its highest in the sky. The other piece of equipment, of course, the mobile phone, therefore, is very useful. They're also useful in a sense that some of them have apps which will allow you to take voice recordings. But a little bit more about that in a minute. The other piece of equipment, of course, is the radio, and I've been using the FT70. It's a radio I purchased about 12 months ago. It's dual band, 2 and 77s, which is quite handy because these two satellites, that's AO91 and SO50, and AO92 when it's up and around, and the Iss Repeater all use 2 and 70 centimetres as upload and downlinks. So uplinks and downlinks, should I say. So that's a very useful piece of equipment, and it also means that using your PC, there are programs out there where you can program the memories with the various different frequencies and CTCSS tones, which are needed to be able to access the satellite. One also has to be careful or be mindful of Doppler shift. That's another technical term which hopefully by now I've explained in some of the slides, but it is something you'll need to be aware of, because you do need to tune across a number of frequencies as the satellite pass is happening, which is one reason why we need to store the frequencies in the memories, because using the VFOs it could be very tricky to do it at a very busy time when the satellite is passing, bearing in mind the majority of the satellite passes are no more than 10 minutes long at a time, and that tends to be a maximum. So this particular radio is the one I use. I also have an FD817. I've not tried that out on the satellites yet, but in a similar vein, that can be programmed with the various frequencies, and they're there waiting to be used so that you've got them in front of you when the satellite pass is taking place. So the FD70. I'm quite sure there are other radios that will do exactly the same thing. There are FD60s, handhelds made by Icon, and of course it's the Bofang, the 30 quid, 20 quid Bofang that you can buy from Amazon these days. They're also suitably programmable so that you can use them on satellite frequencies. I have had it mentioned that it is feasible to work a satellite by using a handheld just purely with its rubber duck type antenna. I'm not sure that is the case. I've not seen anybody who's done that. I'm quite sure that if you have, then it would be a pass where the satellite is virtually overhead. But for the majority of the time, you'll be using, if you're working in a shack, then obviously you'll be using your own vertical type antenna, or an array that's been built for the purpose, or as we are, a portable, then you'll be using a portable type antenna. And the one I have is an arrow. Okay, it's an arrow which breaks down into two pieces, 1 and 2. It's produced in the States specifically for satellite use, although not exclusively, on the basis that it's a 270 antenna. Obviously, you can see that we've got horizontal and vertical polarization with the twisting of it. But of course, it can be used in the normal planes. So say if you're thinking about doing a 2 meter or 70 centimeter contest, should we say. The radials are all, the elements are all removable. The boom will split, so it's easy to carry around and store away. There's a duplexer in the handle underneath the protective cover, and I understand there are also holes drilled, so if you wanted to, you can attach it to a standard issue tripod. Not that I have used it on my phone, but it is perfectly possible to do so. Some people prefer to operate it with 2 radios, and rather than using the duplexer here, we'll connect cables to 2 individual radios, one for 77s and one for 2 meters. But obviously that's your own personal preference. I suppose the reason for doing that is that you can operate actually duplex at the time that the satellite is over, and as well as your transmitter signal, you're also able to hear in real time the fact that you're actually getting into the satellite. But again, that's personal preference, and that's entirely up to you as to whether you want to do it or not. I personally haven't. I prefer it to do with just one. I've only got one pair of hands, and to be honest, it's probably more than enough to operate 2 radios and the antenna and everything else as well. But anyway, that's my antenna, which works perfectly well. And like I say, it's very portable. You can fold it up, pull it apart, and it'll quite easily go in a small bag. So there you go. As far as contact is concerned, actually operating through the satellite, it can be, like I say, fast and furious. So actually making a note of the contacts as you're going along would be extremely difficult. So one other piece of equipment I carry, you might have noticed this around my neck, is a digital voice recorder. And it's always handy to have one of these recording at the same time that you're trying to operate through the satellite. That way, whatever contacts are made, then all the information is stored on one of these, and you can later then go back and listen to it and extract all the various information such as call signs and locators. The voice recorder will also take a note of the time in terms of its own record of hours and minutes and seconds, should we say. It doesn't actually timestamp each individual contact. So by making a note of the time at the start of the recording and at the end of it, then you can easily work out at what time the contact took place. But I find these very, very useful, especially as you can then store it away and then go back and listen to your contacts at a later date. I would then personally log your contact in a notebook, should we say, and or a standard log, even PC log, and then at least then you've got a record of your contacts. The information is exchanged during a QSO, and QSOs are fast and furious, and you're not there to have a rag chew as you would do, say, in 80 metres or 2 metres or whatever. It's basically quick fire. You're exchanging your call sign, you're exchanging a very, very quick report, usual thing, 5 and 9, although there are people out there who do give genuine reports, such as 5 and 3, 5 and 2, depending upon how well they're hearing the satellite. Remembering, at the end of the day, it's a repeater in the same way that the local repeater is. So it's the satellite you're hearing as opposed to the person who you are actually having a contact with. Then you exchange your locator, that's your Maidenhead locator. In this case, I'm at India Oscar 83 Victor Juliet, so I'll be receiving something similar from the other party, although some operators simply give the 4-digit locator, say India Oscar 83, but most people are looking for the elongated locator of the India Oscar 83 Victor Juliet, and it's all part of collecting the contacts with other countries, and also the collecting of squares around the world, around Europe, around the States, within the areas to which the satellites footprint would fall. So realistically, that's what you're looking for. It's a collecting of call signs, countries, locators, that kind of thing, to be able to work to various awards which are available through certainly the logbook of the world and perhaps other platforms as well. So there we have it. Apart from, I mentioned using the apps and of course the MSAT website to find out where the satellite is, where it's going, etc. One other rudimentary piece of equipment that can be used is something like this. And no, they're not spears, even though they do look like it. And no, I haven't fallen out with the neighbours yet. But these are an ideal way of being able to mark the grounds where you are, to give you an indication as to where the satellite will be. So say for instance, the pass of AO91 this morning, the second pass, it rose at 202 degrees from here. So 202 degrees, well, I know roughly that south is in that direction, purely because, you know, the sun rises over there, it sets over there, south, well, it's roughly over there. And yes, it is. So you can use your mobile phone, which usually have some form of compass in it, or you may have an independent compass, and you can work out that 202 degrees is definitely in that direction over in that way. So this you can place in the ground, so you know that that is where the satellite should rise. You then have a second one, which you can place at the point where the satellite will disappear, i.e. the loss of the signal, which in this case today was, let me see, 331 degrees, which again, yeah, virtually opposite. It's going to be roundabout over there. I know north is in that direction, so 331 is going to be kind of over there. So I'll place this in that place over there. Then of course the third one could be put at a point where it's the centre point. That's the point where, in theory, the satellite is going to be at its highest. So I'll place that at, let me see, 267 degrees. Now I know that west is over there, just virtually over the Lexus office building. So it's just going to be a little bit left from there. So I can place the third one in that direction over there. So as the pass is taking place, I can be aware as to where I am looking, at the same time be aware as to where the satellite in all probability is going to be, to make sure that I'm not pointing in completely the wrong direction when I'm trying to work through it. The other point to bear in mind is the actual angle, and that is the point at which the satellite is going to be above the surface. The elevation, I suppose, is the correct term that we should use. Now, the elevation, or the maximum elevation of today's pass, the second pass today, was 33 degrees. Now, if you think of along the horizon being of 0 degrees, and then of course looking straight up would be 90 degrees, then obviously 33 degrees is going to be low, should we say halfway, roughly about there. And in this case, it was just above, or just around above the tops of the trees behind me over there. So I needed to be aware that that's where the maximum elevation of the satellite would be. There's no point in pointing the antenna straight up if at the end of the day the antenna is, the satellite is further down, because I'm just going to completely miss it. So there we are, that's what I use those for. So that's another useful piece of equipment, although bear in mind that it's only useful in daylight. It probably wouldn't be useful at night time, as there are satellite passes at night, unless we have some kind of illumination on the points. But you know, after a while of operating in the same place, it is usual that you become familiar with the various points at which the satellites will rise and fall, so that you know exactly where to place the antenna. So there we are. That's the equipment I have. And like I said this morning, there was a couple of passes of AO91, of which I had a successful contact with a French station. So it just goes to show that the system does work. you are using, at the end of the day, 5 watts, assuming your batteries are fully charged. But there are, of course, other stations out there who are using a little bit more power than you, especially as if they are fixed stations and working from their own shacks with steerable arrays, which of course a lot of them happen to be. So just bear in mind that you are, to some extent, a little minnow out there, but in theory you should still be able to make contacts. But usually the quieter passes, should we say, at later times in the day, later evenings, possibly early mornings, you're more likely to come out of it with successful contacts. But hey, at the end of the day, it's just worth giving it a try as a different aspect to the hobby, and one that you may well become proficient at. Certainly there are people out there who have worked many squares in many countries around the world. And I say around the world, we're talking with low passes. It is feasible to work across the pond, across the Atlantic, into the States, and looking the other way into the old Soviet Union, Russia, and of course north into Scandinavia, down and the other way down into Spain and beyond. So, it is possible to work DX, which sometimes when the bands on the HF bands are not that good, being able to do so relatively easy and relatively cheaply is a good thing. So there we have it. I hope you've enjoyed that. It's getting a little bit cooler out here. Wish I brought a hat, but hey, one thing I have got is a hot pot of coffee waiting for me inside, and maybe a little bit of a dram.
Ciao Roberto, ciao il 37 Rovera, 596N62 Roberto Cazza. 596 November 44 Whiskey Echo, cerchiamo dopo. Zulu 35 Zulu, Golf 0 Alpha Bravo India. Golf 0 Alpha Bravo India. Do you copy the uniform 1 India Zulu over? Good morning, 5 and 9, Italy Oscar 80, over. Good morning to US 599, Julius November 44, Whiskey Echo, QSL my friend. QSL Roberto, thank you, ciao, 73. 73, have a nice day. Julia Victor Charlie Papa Hotel. You copy the uniform 1 Kilo India Zulu over. Mike 0, do that. Going down 5 Delta. You Delta. Or it's 5 Delta. Okay, you're 5. Juliet Oscar 10 go. Secure satellite data, Victor 3 Canada, Japan radio, secure satellite. Secure satellite data, Victor 3 Canada, Japan radio, secure satellite. Italy Victor 3 Charlie, Julius Romeo, copy Italia Uniform 1 Kilo India Francesco. Italia Uniform 1 su pista. Kilo India Zulu Francesco, 59 per 6 Juliet November 44 Whiskey Echo Marcel. Ok, Italia Venezia 1, Kilo India Zulu, Italia Venezia 3, Canada, Japan Radio. Ok, Juliet November 44, ok. Qui è 659 in Juliet November 65, Oscar Tango, QSL? Roger, buona giornata, 73. Ciao, buon divertimento, ciao ciao. Italy Victor, Free Charlie, Juliet, Roger, Fox 5 Delta, Radio Delta. Again? Fox 5 Delta, Radio Delta. Alpha 5 Radio Delta, Italy Victor 3 Canada, Japan Radio. 59 in Juliet November 65 Oscar Tango. Again, your call please. Yeah, okay, my call sign Fox 5 Delta, Radio Delta. 59 Juliet Oscar 10 Golf Alpha, over. Okay, question 73, good luck. Thank you, 73. Papa Charlie, Juliet. Fox 5 Delta, Radio Delta. Fox 5 Delta, Radio Delta, and Juliet Oscar 10 Golf Alpha, this is Papa Charlie, Lima, Euro 5959. Juliet Oscar 20 uniform. Yeah, okay, Papa Charlie 1 Lima, thank you, 59 Juliet Oscar 10 Golf Alpha. Good day, bye-bye. 72.
Papa Charlie 1 Lima, Golf 0, Romeo X-Ray Alpha.
Delta Oscar Zulu again. Fox 5 Radio Delta, Delta Ocean 2 Zulu Zulu, in Juliet November 48 Golf 59. Yeah, so Delta Oscar 2 Zulu Zulu, Fox 5 Delta, Radio Delta 59, Juliet Oscar 10 Golf Alpha, over. Yeah, thank you, Fox 273. Thank you, 73.
Fox 5 Delta Romeo Delta, Golf 0, Romeo X-Ray Alpha.
Golf 0, Radio X-Ray Alpha, Fox 5 Delta, Radio Delta.
Fox 5 Delta Romeo Delta, Golf 0, Romeo X-Ray Alpha, 5 and 9, Indy Oscar 83, Victor Juliet, QSL.
That's okay, QSL, thank you, 59, Juliet Oscar 10 Golf Alpha, over.
Roger, good luck, 7-3s.
Papa Echo 1 from Mike 0, Mike Lima Zulu. Papa Charlie 1 Lima, Papa Charlie 1 Lima, Papa Echo 1, November India Lima.
Papa Charlie 1 Lima, Golf 0, Romeo X-Ray Alpha. Papa Charlie 1 Lima, Golf 0, Romeo X-Ray Alpha.
Go 1,
Golf 1 question mark, Golf 0, Romeo X-ray Alpha. And that's the end of the pass at 10:20. All right, okay. Just going to set up the squares again. Let's see if we can do it.
Nigel, your other video's gone with low bandwidth.
Okay, hopefully I'm back with you. Tony, Tony, give me an indication you hear me.
I can hear you, but there's no video.
Yeah, no, the WebEx crashed with me. As is typical. Let me see if I can do this. Just spare me a sec.
That's it, you know.
Brilliant. System worked, apparently. Right, okay. Sorry about that. Gremlin's getting in here.
Go full screen, Nige.
Says he trying in a sec.
F5.
Yeah, would help. So let me go back a minute. Love these things, don't you? Is that full screen now?
Yep.
Glad for that. All right. Okay. There was a couple of points raised during the video, which I think what I'll do is I'll try and cover at the end. All right. But just a few notes on activity. There's places you can go to find out information about satellite activations, in the sense that very, very similar to IOTA and some of the CQY contests, etc., or de-expeditions, that kind of thing. There are people who come out of the way to activate certain areas of the world as far as satellite operations are concerned. And the one place to go and look again is always the AMSAT North America website with details of upcoming satellite operations. So it's worthwhile having a look on there. There's also a Facebook group for those of you who are on there. It's worthwhile taking a look at Facebook. There's weekly AMSAT bulletins, which are issued by email, but they're also available on the AMSAT website, detailing activations, new satellites, that kind of thing. There is an AMSAT reflector, and it's very, very similar to our own mailing list. If anybody of you is on Twitter, the @AMSAT is a useful place to look at, because there are places on AMSAT, people will note things that are happening, activations that are happening, where they're going, operations, things that have happened, that kind of thing. And you also tend to find that individual satellite operators, they will also have Twitter accounts, and they will acknowledge or note the fact that when they are going out and actually doing something on the satellite. So it's worthwhile keeping a note of those kind of people or following them on the Twitter. There are some notable personalities, and Peter is one of them. Peter 2M0SQL, he lives up in Elgin in Scotland. He moved up there from Oxford a number of years ago, and you could probably see the setup he's got behind him. I think that's his portable setup, which I suspect a few people would like. But he is very active. He's a web developer in his main time of earning, should we say. He's developed a program called CloudLog, which talks to Logbook of the World and all those kind of things. And it's an alternative logging system, which is aimed at the satellite operator, but not just simply exclusively satellite operator. Some of the personalities you might have heard on the video there, G0ABI, he's there on the left. And Henk, ON4AUC, he's the chap that goes Maritime Mobile and operates activates a number of wet squares, should we say. He's regularly on the net or on the satellites, certainly the FM ones, and also the SSB ones as well. We've also got, there we go, there's another one of Hank with his homemade antenna. And a few others to look out for, an M3. Dave is always on the satellites. Then we've got another chap, Craig, in County Roscommon, EI3HW. I worked him when I was doing the G8 SRS 100, and he does have relatives back here in Stockport. Yussi's always a nice chap to work, as is David, and they both tend to remember your name when they've worked you once. Ben is a fireman out in Lowestoft, and he's recently got into it, and his website is worth a look. There are many, many more, but you'll get the idea if you have to listen or go on the satellites. All right, so finally, all I would say is it's another aspect to the hobby. You've seen the way I do it. It is basically portable, and it's easy to access with a dual band 2 and 70 handheld with a reasonable antenna. If you were just simply to sit at home with a handheld on the satellite frequencies, certainly the 2 meter ones, when there's a reasonably close pass, you'll hear activity on there, as long as you've got your squelch open. There is an opportunity for home construction, certainly from the antenna side of things, and potentially also in terms of tripods if you're looking to set up a system in the outdoors or even just simply at home. There's a friendly community of satellite operators, as you may have heard, and also there is DX out there to be worked. There are a growing number of satellites. Like I mentioned before, the Fox program, there's due to be another one launched, but I believe it's supposed to be an SSB linear type satellite, although there is another number of other FM type satellites, which need a bit more power than 5 watts to get in them, but they are there and they're all available to see on the various different apps and AMSAT North America website. It is good for portable operation. As you can see, at the end of the day, the antenna can be broken down, it can be carried around, and of course with a small handheld, fully charged handheld, it is possible to have some fun on it. So there we go. So that's all I've got to say from that point of view is concerned. Apart from the fact that I think it was Tom asked a couple of questions, as did Evan. Let me get out of this system and see if I'm still there, should we say?
You're out.
Right, am I still here?
Yep.
More to the point, you're still here.
Yes, we are.
And not only that, I can see you all, and you're not all asleep. So there we go. Right. So I say there was a number of points raised by a few people, and I think Evan raised and Tom raised the point as far as steerable or tracking satellites across the sky. And I say you can see the way I did it in terms of the handheld antenna and obviously the portable. I've used an 817. After that video, I have used an 817. The issue with the 817 is keeping the batteries charged, because they tend to use up the batteries fairly quickly as far as that's concerned. But it is feasible to, you saw the slide of Peter, and it is feasible to set up those kind of portable satellite operations where you've got a 70 centimetre and a 2 metre antenna, which eventually, with the suitable program, and there is one, I think it's PC Sat, where you load in all the various Capillion elements, which tell you where the satellite is going to be. And that will follow the satellite across the sky as you're trying to transmit into it. And that, to some extent, will save you the issue of obviously tracking it across the sky yourself, and probably free up a pair of hands, to be honest, to do something else, because you'd normally be wearing headphones like you are, Tom, and also have another hand to be able to write things down as well, to log the contacts. But obviously people will develop ways in which they can still record the contacts into a voice recorder to go back and listen to it, should we say, at a later date. So that is feasible, and there are people out there who do that. And a lot of those guys that are operating the satellites, certainly those that are using a lot more power, are using steerable dishes, steerable antennas, and computer programs to actually steer their way onto the satellite. I mentioned M0KPW. His article is in Radcom. It's well worth a look at if you just simply want to dabble with your kit, like I say, a dual band radio and a white stick antenna. It is feasible to do it, certainly with close passes. So just have a look. His article is on in Radcom, which is on the RSGB website, and it's well worth a look at, because there's some very good information in there. Does that answer your question, Evan?
Yeah, and but try it yourself. You haven't used the cat thing or anything on.
No. At the end of the day, I've used the 817, and I have to confess I prefer using the handheld, because it's not a heavy radio, should we say, but around your neck it tends to float around, should we say. But I find it easy with the handheld and the voice recorder to be able to record these kind of things, and to some extent you know where the satellite is going to be. You can track it by ear to some extent, because I think Tom was mentioning about twisting the antenna. You're twisting it to get your best signal coming through, because the satellite is moving all the time, and of course its antenna will be twisting back and forth and away. So you're always having to go through this idea of twisting the antenna to make sure you get the best signal coming through.
Yeah. Isn't polarization circular anyway?
It's supposed to be, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I noticed just quickly. I noticed on the photo of Pete SQL. I mean, he used a pair of Yagis, so he didn't have to turn it round. Right. I guess.
I mean, the arrow, the way that's designed is so that you've got the two elements, depending which way you hold it, obviously, but you've got the two on top and the 70 centimeters like that. So in effect, it's a cross Yagi of some sort. apart from the fact that you've only got one in one plane that way. So you've got to keep twisting it to make sure that you get the correct signal. But, you don't need to do it that much. I mean, it varies. Again, it depends upon the pass. If you've got a pass that is quite low, then this inference of Doppler shift doesn't quite come in so much because it's only going across a short part of the horizon, should we say. Whereas if the satellite is coming straight at you, then you need to be aware that the thing is tumbling all the time and move and adjust your antenna to take account of that. It's one of those things. I've got round to the idea it's trial and error to get it right. As to where you need to point it and how you need to react. You could be violently doing this and then you're missing everything.
But presumably that's one of the advantages of having that duplex system is that where to roughly keep the direction of the antenna polarization.
Yeah, in the first instance, it could be very disorientating if you're not careful, if you don't know exactly where you are. Because you might think you know where the satellite is, but unless you've taken account of, especially if you're in somewhere which you're not familiar with. So say if I went up to Cullenbarn Farm, well, all right, you can take a guess as to where the sun is and think, well, that's going to be roughly south, or depending obviously what time of day it is. And you can point it in a particular direction. And in effect, you're pointing the wrong way, should we say. It should be that way. So it's a question of making sure that you know what your location is and where the satellite is going to come up. Somewhere which has got a low horizon, should we say, as opposed to me operating from home where I've got trees and buildings and all that kind of thing all the way around me. At the end of the day, the satellite is going to be higher when the signal comes in, as opposed to somewhere where you've got a complete horizon in view. So then you can point your antenna straight at the horizon and then get a full pass as the thing's coming across. That's what being portable helps. That's where portable being helps, and also the fact that you're using your own, shall we say, arms to move the antenna. Yeah, if you're using a piece of equipment, all right, unless it's attached to the old PC and the PC is doing the work, then it's another piece of thing to control. Where it's quite easy to control your arms and the radio in two hands, shall we say?
Absolutely.
Any others? I can see Steve a bit clearly now. He's been in that.
That's the point, Nigel.
Oh, yeah,
sorry, we dropped out.
No, you're there. I can hear you.
Right, okay. I mean, something I did was, I haven't done any amateur radio satellite stuff, but I used to observe them, at night times. And I just noticed, I just went on the Heavens Above thing. One of the good things about that, because I use just sort of basic text satellite positioning, which would give you when it, what time it rises above the horizon, or is 10 degrees above the horizon, and when it reaches the top point, etc. But it actually shows you the track.
Yeah.
It gives you a sort of a plan view and shows you how you guys with some draws across the sky with the time hacks along the track.
Yeah.
That was quite useful. I mean, certainly for the astronomical ones, because they often didn't go from horizon to horizon. You'd start to, they'd either disappear or appear at a certain point above the horizon, and you'd sort of point your binoculars at that part of the sky in sort of an anticipation of it. And I imagine you could do that with the radio as well. Just have the antenna at weight at sort of 60 degrees up or whatever in anticipation. Because I mean, the distance that I said in my comment, the distance between the zenith point and the acquisition or loss of signal can be a big difference, can't it?
It can be, yeah. Because I mean, you think of the miles involved. And it could be quite a significant distance involved, should we say, certainly if you're dealing with a pass that is a low pass over the horizon, should we say. Quite a few of the apps that you can get. I mean, I mentioned SatSat. To some extent, whilst they don't give you the times at individual points along individual points along the track, they do draw you a track. So you've got an idea of an arc across the sky as to where the satellites are going to be. I mean, Pete's raised the question about, is there a beacon? There are beacons and there's telemetry on the SSB side of things. The linear satellites, you quite often find that there's on a separate frequency about 10 kcs away, that there is a CW beacon or a telemetry beacon. So when you're operating on a linear satellite, because the difference between linears is where you've got the SSB, you've given them a portion of a band. The FM satellites, effectively, they're a repeater in the sky. That's the way you're looking, apart from the fact they're operating on different bands, of course. But the linear satellites are slightly different in the sense they're still operating on different bands, i.e. you transmit on 2 and it's received on 70, but you're given a portion of the band, or the transponder looks at something like 20 kc. So you can transmit on a portion of that available 20 kc and come out somewhere on the, say, 70 centimeters on an equivalent portion of that band. But there is to allow people to know where it is, or amateurs to know where it is. Then there is a telemetry beacon, which quite often sends a CW beacon as well. So you've got an idea that first of all, the satellite is there, and know when to actually transmit into it. AO73 is a good one for that. The FunCube, which the FunCube dongle was designed for. The FunCube dongle, if you try to remember the frequency that the telemetry is on, it's 145.835, 935, something like that. It transmits, as it's passing over, it transmits, I think it's done in PSK, and it just sounds like a dot, like a beep, 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 as it's passing over. And you can download from the FunCube website, you can download the dashboard. And if you've got the system which will receive that signal by PSK, you will see the various parameters updating on the screen. But linked to the FunCube is also a transponder, which roughly about 10-15 kc up the band, so it'll be around about 950 to 960 or 70, I think it is. There is a transponder that you can transmit into, and your signal will come out on 70 centimeters or the other way around. I can't remember which way around it is, but if either you go up on 2 and come back on 70, or 70 and come back on 2, and that's SSB. But some of these satellites, what they do is reverse it. So you transmit on upper sideband, and it comes out on the lower sideband.
All right.
Right. So
I want to remember that.
But that's the next step for me to go to, should we say? But you need an Olmo rig to be able to do it, and that's where, to some extent, you need the tripod with the antenna and that kind of thing. It is feasible to do with the Arrow antenna in your hand, but it's very, very difficult to hold the antenna, control the rig, and the microphone at the same time. FM satellites are relatively easy from that point of view.
Yeah,
you can use Vox. You can use Vox, but that's not the issue to some extent. I mean, the Vox side is easy, but it's checking where your signal actually physically comes out, should we say, at the other end. Because you've got you need full duplex when you're dealing through the linear satellites, because you need to know exactly where which frequency you're transmitting in, but you also need to know which frequency is coming out at the other end. Especially if you're searching for somebody. If you're answering a CQ call on a linear satellite, you need to be able to know that you're on the same frequency as he is. It's a good one. But I mean, that's why, to some extent, the people with the better equipment tend to work on the SSB satellites as well as the FM satellites. If you look at Peter, the 2N0SQL some of the contacts he's having with the other side of into the States. It's quite incredible from his location because he's able to use low passes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have heard that he does that, and that must be right on the horizon. Or it must be refracted a little bit as well, I imagine.
Possibly. But like I say, I mean, if you think the way the signal's going up and then coming down again, some of the distances can work are into the thousands, way into the thousands of kilometres.
Thanks, Nigel. I've got really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
No problem. See you tomorrow. Enjoy the Guinness.
Everybody, thank you very much.
Right.
See you, matey.
Bye now.
Bye.
That's one down.
Bye.
One frightened off. You can't even say last orders now, can I?
Oh.
Can I just ask? I mean, I'd imagine the.
Where's he gone? Oh, there he is. Keeps moving around when he stays still.
I'm staying still, I think. To me, I am. I mean, things like the IC79, was it 9700? I mean, having that analyzer would be terrific for things like the sideband and stuff like that. And just knowing where these signals are and just clicking onto it straight away without guessing, or because it is hard to zero in on a sideband signal. No,
it's an art.
It's not easy.
I'm not. I mean, I'm sure they do it. Transmit CW and things like that. But I've not seen it happen. But certainly, there are umpteen videos and all that kind of stuff out there of people working, doing SSB, whether it be portable or from the shack or whatever it is. There's so much on YouTube about it. It is one of those aspects to the hobby where. If you do get involved, and if you're not careful, you end up spending millions or thousands, that kind of thing on antenna systems. It's like you say, that if you get some 2 cross Yardies and that kind of thing, then you've got to set it up, and then you've got the PCs to control it. Oh, and then you've got the the rotators, and of course it's got to be up down as well as that way.
Yeah.
So if you're not careful, you're going to be spending quite a bit of money on it. But it can be quite rewarding, shall we say. But I went for the easy side of it. At the end of the day, it's an arrow antenna. It points in the air. You point it where you want it to. And like I say, there is a connection to or holes drilled in the hand, underneath the handle grip, where you can attach it to a tripod if you wanted to do that. Of course, it doesn't have to be used for SSB for satellites. You can use it as just a normal 2-meter beam or 77 beam if that's where you want to do it.
I suppose, Nigel, with that arrow antenna, if you attach it to a tripod, then you're limited because you can't operate it circular to pick the signal from the satellite.
Well, yes and no, because depending on the tripod, I mean, I've got a tripod that goes like that as well as like that. You've got the base which flips over. So there are tripods out there where you can actually move the change the angle of the antenna, through 90 degrees. But again, you've got to have your hands on it to actually physically control it, haven't you?
Yep.
Okay, Heather. No worries. See you soon.
Hi there.
Yeah.
Cheers, Heather.
But it's feasible to. I mean, again, there are plenty of videos out there of people who actually do that, who as well as securing the antenna to a tripod, they then have an extra boom stuck out the end of the antenna, to which they attach a handheld. So in effect, as well as moving the handheld around, they're also moving the antenna at the same time. Yeah, but I'm not entirely sure that makes much difference, because you've still then got to change channels on the radio, should we say, to be able to take account of the Doppler shift. But that's feasible to do. It is feasible to do. It's each person's preference as to how they go about doing it. The duplex angle is quite interesting. I say the recommendation is that you do try and use full duplex where possible, so you can hear yourself coming back through the satellite. To be honest, I'm not bothered with that. I just simply got it because whilst you're transmitted, you tend to be concentrating on the fact that you're pointed in the direction, not the fact that you're coming back through it.
But it's not just the direction, is it? It's your
it's your elevation as well.
Yeah, that too. But I mean the aspect of the antenna for the polarization. I mean, how do you know that you're? I mean, you get it from the last transmission. Someone said, "Is that where you leave it and switch it around 90 degrees or something like that for the different band?"
I tend to be fluid in a sense. But the interesting thing is, like I say, is the Doppler shift, because on 70 centimeters, whilst I say I prefer SO50, the SO50 side of it is more easy because the Doppler shift side of it is a lot less critical than it is on AO91, because you're transmitting on 2 meters. All right, got you, Tom. Won't be a minute. Yeah. So you transmit on 2 meters, but on 70 centimeters, it is critical because that you move frequency as required, and of course, as well as doing that, so you've got two aspects to it. You're moving the frequency as needed, and you're also moving the antenna as well. Yeah, to take account of the fact. All right, Roy, I'll knock on your door tomorrow. But run as well. But yeah, so you're controlling both the antenna and also the radio as well by moving up and down the required frequency. Yeah, and this is why, to some extent, the recommendation is for newcomers you start with low passes, because the Doppler shift problem isn't so great on low passes as it is on passes where it's coming straight over the top or reasonably close.
Unless you acquire the signal when it's near the top.
Yeah,
because you won't get any Doppler shift there.
No, right on the top of you, but as it's right over the top of you, then somebody else is shouting as well. You know, from that side, from that side, from that side, from that side. You know, so there could be a whole load of contact people trying to get into it. Yeah, all right, you're pointing straight up at the satellite, but it might be that the antenna, because it's twisted, the satellite is twisted in the sky, it's facing somebody else. So I'm just going to bear that in mind. Tom.
Yeah, it strikes me actually that those satellites are the size of a fair-sized box that somebody like Yodel would deliver with a few Nespresso boxes in it or something like that. Actually, I mean, they're not going to have any attitude controlling them when they're in space at all, so they're just going to be tumbling over all the time.
Absolutely.
In which case, they are going to polarize, but they're going to polarize very randomly. I'm not even sure that, in fact, the polarization is very controllable. If the satellite itself is rotating in a random fashion, it might not actually be rotating, for example, with its own sort of internal pole and spinning consistently. It could be rolling and yawing as well, in which case the radio waves are going to be, polarization is going to be all over the place.
Moving all over the place, that's right.
Yeah.
Right, two people. I saw two people there. There was Pete and there was Tony. Tony was first.
Yeah, I'm going to go now. I'll leave you to it. I've got to take my granddaughter to work this morning. She's on the early start at the hospital. So, 7-3 to you all. Great talk, Nigel. Really enjoyed it. And hope to catch you on the next one.
You certainly will.
Everyone, and catch you on the next WebEx.
It's like celebrity squares again. Everybody says bye-bye, you know.
Yeah, take care.
The Brady Bunch.
Pete, absolutely. Pete, you're next.
Yeah, coming back to Tom about spinning and polarization, the transmissions from the satellite are circularly polarized, so to some extent it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen before now the turnstile antenna, not the turnstile.
It's a screw.
There is the screw, where it's actually circular in an attempt to counteract that. I haven't seen so many around recently, Pete.
Yeah, if you've got a circularly polarized antenna, it's got to be the right way round.
Yeah.
Remember trying to pick up the first transatlantic TV transmission at Goonhilly, and they got the antenna on backwards, and it didn't.
We got a good view of Captain Booth, though. I can remember Raymond Baxon saying, "There is the big dish, and there's Captain Booth," and that went on right through the whole transmission.
Did they use any glue?
I don't know if he used glue or not, but I do remember
super glue.
I do remember Captain Booth was wearing a sports jacket, a sort of tartan sports jacket with leather patches on his sleeves.
Phil, you were next.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure my mic was on. No, just going to what Pete said about the direction. The other thing you need to watch, if you do use a dish, if you're using a helix, when you point the helix at the dish, if it's right-handed going in, when it comes off the dish, it's then left-handed. so there's just another one there to confuse you, just in case you... So you need to be a little bit careful with that one. And they do. I guess like linear polarization, when it bounces off something, it changes. So if it's vertical, you bounce it. It goes to it goes to horizontal. Then you lose a little bit, and so it's black magic.
Absolutely. Pete, you were next.
Yeah, just to say, on the second day from Goonhilly, they'd managed to get the antenna on the right way round.
Yeah, they did. That's right. Yeah. It did work rather well the second time, but the French were really crowing because they got the picture straight away at night, actually, when Goonhilly failed, actually.
Typical French. John, you were next.
Do you know what the output power is from these satellites that they transmit?
Some of them are in the milliwatts.
Yeah, I was going to say, very low.
I think it's very, very low.
Mm.
I mean, obviously the ISS one is going to be more because it's using a standard issue ham rig. But as far as the AO91, SO50, and those kind of things are concerned, the figures I've seen are in the milliwatts.
Well, yeah, right.
I mean, what they ask is that you don't use too much power because at the end of the day you're going to overload them. Yeah, and I've heard. I was listening to a conversation the other day. There was a chap on. It was SO50, and he was talking to another guy who was trying to get into. There's another satellite called PO101, Diawatt 2 something, I think it is, and it's a Philippine satellite, and I understand that you need to use something in the region of 10 to 15 watts to get in that. As opposed to just simply 5 watts that you can do with AO. But the output power is a lot bigger is on the others. So, it swings and roundabouts from that point of view. But in general, these ones that I'm talking about, you're talking about your 5 watts. And then, of course, going back to Evan talking about the linear satellites, they have a similar output power. But if you've got that bandwidth available to use and you've got say 10 stations all transmitted into it at one time and then transmitting out again, then you've got to be careful you don't overload these overload the outputs of the transmitter again because of those 10 stations. Somebody put their hand up. Keith, I can see that one. I can't hear you though. I can see you. Oh, here we go. Are you on mute, Keith?
I think your microphone might be off. Yeah,
I think you're muted. I've got a red thing up here saying microphone muted. Yeah,
better. Can you hear me now?
Yay!
I can hear you now.
Right. Thanks very much, Nigel. Very interesting. I'm going to have to check out now. So, very good evening to all.
No problem at all. I'm sure before long the EMF over your area, Reddish, is going to be particularly high, isn't it? So, we better be careful, aren't we? All
the best to everybody.
Good night, Keith.
Have fun.
Good night.
I wish you'd like to stop moving around. I can't keep up with where you are. John.
Yeah. It just so happens that I've just received an email from my neighbour across the road.
Nothing to do with satellites.
Well, he's into amateur astronomy and he's just built a tracking system. Camera.
Right, yeah.
And then last night he sent me a photograph. I don't know if if there's some way I can share it with you.
You should be able
to. Hang on a minute.
Just send it to the SRS members thing.
I'm not sure I'm able to allow you to share it. It might have been Tony, but just give me a minute. Let me see if I can. I can't.
Can you send it to the email?
Yeah.
Let's have a look then. Was it the moon or something, was it?
No, it's M42 Orion Nebula.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, because Orion was quite visible last night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of moonlight. Bloody, wonder he got it.
Anyone can share, apparently. So you're all right. You can go ahead and share it if you want.
Share your screen.
You see the share screen at the bottom?
Yeah, get your image up on the screen and then hit the share screen green portion.
Okay. Okay. Share screen. Oh yeah.
And then it will allow you to pick something from your screen. Here we go.
Here it comes.
It's going.
Yeah.
Yes. Whoa. Wow. Well done.
Nice.
Oh, that's nice.
That's what he took last night.
Yeah, that's good, actually. There's hardly any movement on the star. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Said he had to go in at 2 o'clock because he thought he was going to die. He was so cold.
Right. Yeah.
The best nights.
Has he tried submitting that to the Sky at night? Because I mean, they've got a website there that you upload all these photographs to.
Yeah.
You got M42, M43 there.
M42, yeah. Orion Nebula.
And M43.
All right.
Yeah, M42 is the main sort of flowery bit, that the bright bit. And just a bit above around a star is M43.
Oh, right. Okay, I can see it. Yes. Yeah.
It's done quite well.
That is good.
Yeah.
But for all the moonlight that was out last night, that was very good.
Yeah.
Especially with the full moon, wasn't it?
The thing about that is, I was just thinking about you see, Malcolm, my lad, in fact, has got one of those tracking devices because he used to take, when he lived in North Wales, where there was less atmospheric pollution, like their cities. In fact, he used to have a camera that he set up with a computer thing, a little Acer, these cheap things, and it ran the program that did the tracking. But I've never asked him, actually, if it would track fast enough to follow a satellite, because you were saying, Nigel, it only takes, is it about 10 minutes and the satellites come and it's gone, sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't think these are lower satellites.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, I mean, it doesn't take long for them to pass the sky, does it? So
whereas if you're taking
I've got a tracker.
Yeah, have you? If you're taking a photo.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I'd imagine he has one with a basic sort of equatorial mount to track stars. Is that as they go across the sky? Well, I mean, some of the fancier ones can track the ISS and things like that. They're fast enough to, but I think.
Yeah, I'll have to ask him. In fact, this has whetted my interest now because basically he only lives over in Appleton. So, it's a sort, and he's got clearer light over there as well, or it's darker nights over in Appleton. They're more affluent over there. They don't have as many street lights as they do around here. So I was thinking that would he be able to track the ISS? That's the type of thing I'm thinking about. Yeah, I don't know if it's one will.
I mean, he might be able to. I mean, generally, I mean, I've got a fairly fancy mount, and that it'll sort of move to this whatever star you've plugged into quite quickly. But whether it tracks as, particularly as the ISS goes close to zenith and it's moving fairly quickly in terms of angle, it would track it. I don't think it can. I'll be surprised if it could.
When I have my next family Zoom, I'll ask him, actually. In fact, we're only allowed one a week, actually, and it lasts for 40 minutes.
What some people do is you can get a program which tells you when the ISS is either going to cross the face of the moon or the sun.
All right, yeah.
And they'll have their telescope and that set up with the video, so it clicks through a few frames and you can see the silhouette of the ISS.
All right.
Across the moon or the sun.
Oh, gosh. I understand. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That's quite easy.
Mm-hmm.
Bernard, you're muted. You're muted.
Thank you very much for telling me. But thank you very much for the talk as well. Very interesting. But I must dash. All right. Bye, everybody. Nice to see you, Steve.
Night, Matt. Good night,
Bernard.
How do we get out of here?
Can't leave.
I'll just leave it on. We're all right. We'll turn it off.
It's all right.
The big red button.
We'll let you know when the phone's ringing.
Yeah, don't forget to put the cat out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, you can talk about him now.
Oh, don't yet. The number's still up there. It's gone now. Yeah.
That's why I said it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going. Night, everybody.
Good night,
said that?
John.
Oh, John.
John,
Right.
yeah. Good night, John.
Yeah, good night.
See you.
Good night.
Nice to see you, Stevie. Right.
Thanks, mate.
Bye.
It's been an interesting night on there. See you soon. Hope you're safe.
Bye.
Good night, John boy. Good night, John boy.
Nigel, I'm going to have to make a dart now as well. Thanks very much. It's been very interesting. I did have a few technical problems. It did drop out twice, and I had to re-log back in. But that's not your problem. It's problem at my end.
Well, don't worry. I lost it as well halfway along the line. I tried to escape, but it didn't work. It's all recorded anyway, I think. The record button said it's doing anyway, so.
Excellent. Yeah. Right, thanks, guys. See you soon. Bye.
Have fun. See you then.
Take care. Take care. Good night.
Good night.
All right.
If I can get out.
Hit the red button.
No, you can't.
There he is. Got to hit the red button. There he is. He's gone. Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit of the comedian. I forget his name now, but he was always concerned about his grandmother when he gave her the new remote control for the TV, and she was worried about what all the other people were going to do when she paused the channel to go and make a cup of tea. The whole world on pause.
Wish you could do that.
I forget his name now. He's a local guy, isn't he? From Bolton or Burnley or somewhere. Peter Kay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Peter Kay talking about his grandma, yeah. His nan.
You mean the one he sold for a snooker table?
Sorry?
The one he sold for a snooker table?
Yeah.
But that's fun.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so I believe there's I don't know what he does with these recordings, so and where we actually get hold of them, but I believe this is all recorded. So
all right.
So if you really wanted to, you could watch it again.
No talking about drugs like we did last time, Tom.
Well, I kept off the subject this time. Actually, I'm completely drugged out.
What do you think that glue's all about?
I think a touch of C2H5OH diluted with 30% H2O will be in order actually tonight.
What's that? Ammonia, is it?
No, H2O is water. Actually, C2H5OH is alcohol.
Oh, is it?
Ethyl alcohol.
Well,
You've got to be.
I was about to say that's what Chris is on.
You need to be careful. I mean, years ago, I won the pools. Just a small hit.
Yeah.
A few $100,000, and unfortunately, I spent most of it on drink, drugs, fast women, fast cars, and the rest of it I squandered.
Well, there you go.
That's a quote from a certain woman.
That's like the old saying, Phil, being of sound mind and healthy body, I spent a lot.
Very good. Right, I'm going to disappear as well now. So.
All right, okay. Well, since you're the host, that kills the rest of us.
I don't know, because Tony's got co-host. His machine is still open here, so I don't know whether it'll just continue to the bitter end, until he shuts his machine down. So, but if anybody's staying longer.
Well, I'm thinking about heading off anyway, actually. So I'll say good night to everybody too.
Is anybody staying?
No, I don't think so.
Right, I think we've... Nope. Nigel, thank you very much. That was very good. I certainly enjoyed it tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Nigel. That was good.
Too. Yeah, it was really good.
Well, like I say, the recording should be put somewhere. I have no idea where the hell it does with them. But, if there's anybody wants any leaflet, because there's plenty of written stuff about this.
Yeah.
And I've downloaded some articles and things like that, and I shall make them available at some point in time. And I say there's plenty of videos and stuff like that around. But if anybody wants to see that video of mine again, I'll put it on YouTube. So I'll send the link round at some point in time in the next few days, so you can have a look at it as well if you want.
Excellent.
Just feel free. Yeah, who said
just
that?
a very, very quick one before you go.
Yeah.
It's sort of relevant to what you were saying earlier on. Does anybody use, maybe Pete will, does anybody use or know a thing called I can't even say it, GeoGebra?
No, I'm not heard of that.
Have you not come across
No.
It's spelled a bit like geometry and then algebra, but it's GeoGebra. It's basically a calculator, you know, a desktop calculator,
right?
But it plots graphs. And you can
polar diagrams, spherical diagrams, and stuff like that. Is it?
Yeah, but there's some really, quite. You just download there's a load of stuff already out there for this application. You don't need to load it. I don't think you can do it online, or you can just download it and stick it on your desktop. You don't install it.
So in other words, just put a function into it and it'll plot it for you, type of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. But it deals with all the it deals with all the trig functions. It'll do
yes.
It'll do calculus. It can integrate and differentiate and do all that.
Oh, well, that's quite interesting, actually.
Well, the reason I'm saying that, there are some really good ones that show. I mean, I can pop it onto the email for you.
Yeah.
There's a couple of good ones that show you circular polarization.
Okay.
So they show you the 90-degree shift and the up and down one, and the cross one, and how the circular one is generated.
Right.
And it's animated, so you have sliders and things, and you can slide the sliders, and it'll either start the animation or spread it out or slow it down. You can do it in 3D and all sorts.
It's a good visualization.
It's free, yeah.
I
mean, it's a great little calculator. Math calculator. Do all sorts of stuff with it.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, the best one I think I've seen, again, might be good for training, for just a sine wave. It just plots a circle with a vector, going round, going round in the circle. You use a circle with a vector going round. Then you hit the button, and it follows the vector and plots the sine wave, or a cosine or a tangent or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But really, really good. I'll bang it onto the thing. It's free. But yeah, I just thought with a circular, because it's sometimes quite difficult to get a conceptual view of what circular polarization is really, but it explains a picture paints 1,000 things with.
Well, that's right. That kind of program actually sounds as though it would provide a very good pictorial aid for a lot of these mathematical functions and stuff.
Certainly
like that,
for the training, and for Pete and the guys that are doing the training.
Sorry, we don't do trading anymore.
Maybe ad hoc. Ad hoc, maybe.
No, but you know what I mean. Sometimes a picture, even if you've been doing stuff for years, and you look at it and you think, God, I understand that now. I thought I did, but now I really do.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll pop the thing on with a couple, and the one about circular polarization on the. But you just click on it and up it comes. There's all stuff. There's things that plot COVID, the graphs for COVID-19, and you can put in the R value and see the way and the recovery values and see how it affects the the number of deaths or the number of cases or whatever. Quite interesting.
Perhaps we better let Boris know.
Keep going up, don't we?
Yeah. Sorry.
Linearly.
I don't think he's listening.
Don't mention politics to me. Don't mention politics to me.
You
want to sleep. I want to sleep tonight. Actually, in fact, I can't handle the stress of the politics.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Anyway, I'm going to say good night, chaps, because I've got. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Good night, Tom.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Nigel, that was very good.
Yeah. Take care. Yeah. Cheers, Bob. Yeah. Good night.
Good night, Mary Ellen. Good night, Mary Ellen. Good night, John Boy. Good night, Mary Ellen. Good night, John Boy. dear me.
Where's the pause button?
It's actually an RS44 pass in about 5 minutes' time, so I might listen out for the beacon on that.
Yeah, have a listen to the
Go to
beacon.
bed.
What rig are you using?
It's just an 817.
All right,
just
okay.
Plug into the co-linear in the attic, so hopefully it'll be able to hear it.
Yeah, there usually be some people on it, so it's quite a big bandwidth. But one to listen out for is AO73. But
Okay.
if you go to the FunCube website, right, you can download the dashboard, and the dashboard links into if you plug the signal in, to the dashboard, you'll get all the parameters coming up.
Okay.
No idea what they mean, mine, but it tells you things like outside temperature and stuff like that, and there are ways of then transmit it into FunCube so they keep a track of it.
Right. Okay. Because I know there's a project for monitoring satellites in general using SDRs and tracking and everything. It's all open source, and I can't remember what it's called now. There's a whole project.
Yeah, but say FunCube's the one, right?
Right. Okay.
It's always worth the start of. Say 145935, I think it is the beacon frequency, but it's usually over about 4 or 5 times in a day. And you can say it's just simply, all you hear is just simply a beep, 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 beep as it's going over.
It's coded.
Right? But if you plug it into your rig, and then that rig then into the software, then it should decode it.
Right. Okay. I might give that a try.
It's worth a go anyway.
Yeah.
Right. I'm off, Joys. I'm off, chaps.
Thank you very much.
See you.
I'm trying to get
Thanks, Nigel. Bye.
Until we all meet again.
Does anybody know where your on switch is?
I might be able to do that for you.